Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get the Scoop with Smirks, episode 17. I'm Elisa Lewis, and joining me today is my colleague, Jessica Warden.
Hey, friends.
In this episode, we're breaking down the trends we saw at ExpoWest show in Anaheim this March. And, as a bulk organic and non-GMO conventional ingredient importer and supplier, Smirks is very active in Anaheim. Not only do we exhibit at ExpoWest, but we're also in the Fresh Ideas Organic Marketplace and the nearby Southern California IFT show. So today you're going to want to hear all the things we have to say, but high level, some of the things that we'll go over are nutrient-dense snacks to the rise of nostalgic flavors and innovative global products. We'll really dive into the major trends we uncovered at Expo. So, Jessica, big welcome to you.
What's up, Elisa? I have to say I've been dreading. I'm just kidding. I've been looking forward to recording this podcast ever since we've gotten back from Anaheim. It's always a fun one to recap. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This is going to be a lot of fun. And not only are we podcast buddies, but we were sharing a house at the show, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So there you have it. All right. Well, let's break it down with some stats, Jessica. They reported that there were some 70,000 attendees at the show this year with about 3,000 exhibitors.
Okay.
Last year, they said around 65,000 attendees with about 3,300 exhibitors. So pretty good stats. The schedule this year, of course, was shortened. And, being Wednesday through Friday with limited hours on the last day, that was kind of a different format.
Whoop, whoop, no Saturday.
Yeah, we got our weekend back, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And Tuesday, when we opened up, we felt like kind of the cool kids in town, maybe because there's nothing else going on. But over at the Fresh Ideas Organic Marketplace, the place was hopping, right?
Yeah, for sure. It was very busy. Lots of great conversations in that first day, for sure.
Definitely. And the fact that we were in a captive audience didn't hurt, but then we really had to divide and conquer with our team because we had the Southern California IFT show that opened up at 3:30. So half our team headed over to that show to cover that one as well. And I got to say, despite all the traffic congestion that people were facing trying to get from one place to the other, the SoCal IFT was quite busy.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. It was. Through the end too. It stayed really busy through most of the show hours. So that was great.
It definitely did. Yeah. And for those of you who haven't been to that show, I think it's really great because it really is a place for anybody looking for very specific ingredients to find it. I mean, you can find just about anything just walking up and down those aisles, and it's just a great place to network with people. I mean, we had so many customer and supplier engagements there. It was a lot of fun.
For sure. I agree. It was a nice way to start off the expo where, you kind of see a lot of your industry friends starting in the organic marketplace. But then when you get over to IFT, it's like, a great way to kick off the week for expo. That's for sure.
Absolutely. So without further ado, let's kick into these, or let's dig in to these trends. Jessica, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
So a lot of what we saw is, doesn't come with a lot of surprise. It's, what we kind of have come to see over the last few years. And we just see a lot of growth in these continued, snacking trends. And so nutrient density, definitely protein packed snacks ruled the aisles. This year, protein was king. And a lot of it was not your typical protein applications. We saw a lot of a surge in versions of our favorite foods being enriched with protein. So pasta sauce, overnight oats, pancakes, some of the fruit bars. I think, Elisa, you mentioned you saw protein pretzels. And so that's really fun to just kind of see new and inventive ways to really pack that protein punch. And that's also not to disregard that protein drinks are still going strong. So basically, we're seeing protein applications as far as from an ingredient level, where whether it's pea protein, whey powder, other plant-based proteins, whether they're from nuts or other kind of creative options. That's definitely something that we're still continuing to see readily available there at the show.
I couldn't agree more. The protein trend was certainly not unexpected,
Mm-hmm.
but what did surprise me, as compared to 2024, was all the real meat
Mm-hmm.
products
Mm-hmm.
that were at the show. I'm not talking about plant-based meat. I'm talking about real meat,
Yeah, like
meat
Arby's, we have the
sticks.
meats. Everybody was
Yes,
there with the meats. Yeah, exactly.
it was absolutely there. So that was very interesting. The meat sticks, the meat jerky, and all the different flavors. You could find it all. But that's not to say that there weren't all of those plant-based
Mm-hmm.
products as well.
Yep.
All the different ones that we've seen in the past. But what caught my eye as something new and different this year was some of the seafood products that
Yeah,
that are popping up, like smoked salmon. That
right.
was really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of fun to kind of just see what, each year is gonna bring in innovation. Um, but speaking of, maybe high dollar proteins, what is your take on this egg related, you know, products this year? Some of the growth we've seen there.
I was really keying in on that one, just knowing that it's top of mind for consumers these days, as far as like not only the price of eggs, but finding protein, sources of protein like an egg.
Right.
And so, what I definitely noticed was that there were a lot of different egg replacement products. And so, I saw things like what a vegan would be looking for, or maybe just somebody who wants to eat more plant based food,
Sure.
like a real hard boiled egg looking product. I mean, I was
Huh.
kind of blown away by it in terms of the look and the texture. Um, it seemed like a hard boiled egg, and it was like a kind of, nice on the go type product, or
Sure.
easy product to throw in your salad or whatever.
Right.
And it was made from almonds, cashews, and coconut milk.
Oh, wow.
So super interesting.
Definitely.
I thought it was pretty good.
Cool.
And it did win a Nexty award, which was, so kudos to them.
Yeah.
There were also there was a plant-based egg patty that I saw, and on the flip side, for the innovators who are looking to still utilize eggs in their ingredient deck, or really try to cut down the number of eggs,
Hmm.
cost wise. There were definitely some companies that were providing solutions for that, and you could see that at the IFT show a lot, which was
Okay.
fascinating. I learned that some of the R&D managers are utilizing a steamed chickpea flour as a replacement for eggs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
pretty interesting. So the steaming process takes or reduces the bean flavor and aroma, making it kind of a neutral option. So you can use it for various recipes.
I've also seen that that particular spec makes the kind of brings out some of the emulsification properties in the chickpea relative to just like a straight chickpea flour. So that probably helps quite a bit when you're using it in place of eggs.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, aquafaba, that's been around, but
Sure.
that's definitely another one that was featured as an egg replacement. I just think that consumers still want their eggs, and in whichever fashion
Right.
they're going to get their eggs, or the illusion of eggs.
Right. Right. Yeah,
So
that's for sure. And I mean, I think it's just because there's so many trends out there where it just points to people wanting, pretty readily available snacks and foods, and eggs are always kind of that tried and true. They're really easy to make. They're easy to have on the go. They're easy to, jazz up a little bit if you want to have a nicer option for them. So it's no surprise that people would also like, a substitute for them in times when maybe they're making dietary changes, or when economically it doesn't make sense to eat them as much as we, have once consumption level that we're used to.
absolutely. Yeah. So pretty interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's cool. So, for all of our friends that don't know what aquafaba is, Elisa, could you tell us a little bit about that one?
So, I mean, it's viscous water from legume seeds like chickpeas.
Oh,
That the texture can just be used as an egg replacement. I think it's fairly neutral in terms of flavor.
yeah.
Um, if you
I
know
think
about it, more about it, Jessica, pipe
uh,
in.
from what I remember is that it's
Yeah.
very much more aligned with like the egg white portion of the egg, and so you can actually use it as like a one for one replacement if you're trying to do things like meringues and that kind of thing. So me and my daughter have started making a meringue dessert as a Thanksgiving tradition. So I might challenge her this year and say, hey, we should try it with aquafaba and see how well it goes.
There you go.
Yeah,
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 there's a good challenge.
yeah.
I'd like to hear how that turns
It'll
out.
probably end up disastrously, but it'll be fun. That's the key there. So.
It's an adventure.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Uh,
beyond that, brands definitely seem to be trying to check more boxes, not only with protein packed and enriched items, but definitely still that gut friendly, low carb, and other functional ingredients. We continue to see some of that.
yeah. So, what do you think is really driving that trend?
I think there's a lot of different factors in play. Certainly, we'll continue to see the influence of social media and just what, influencers and dietitians and the content that's being put out is driving a lot of consumer opinion. And certainly, protein rich and nutrient dense foods are no exception to the content that's covered on social media. There's this, people actually want to live long and they want to be healthy. Imagine that. And so
You
they're
think?
starting to connect the dots that what you put in your body actually has an impact on that. So definitely protein rich foods and recipes are featured over and over as the population in general focuses on fitness and weight loss. Higher protein has always been part of that because protein helps develop muscle mass, and with muscle mass you have weight loss and strength and all kinds of things that people find beneficial in the long run to a high quality of life. And I kind of wonder about the impact that we're starting to see with the GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic. We've just seen how some of those consumer trends and adoption levels of that particular drug have also impacted diets and consumption and grocery levels. There was a report in the Progressive Grocery and Food Dive that basically said that individual grocery spending has decreased by around 6% in the first few months of someone adopting that treatment. And so that percentage is even higher with people in higher income brackets. So as I understand it, there's this emphasis on eating healthy proteins because as people are consuming less, then that nutrient density really comes into play. So across the board, I think all consumers, really have started to appreciate nutrient density. But with this particular niche of consumers that are now kind of changing their shopping habits, I think it's driving a little bit of those functional needs even more so. So I think I've read that, a GLP-1 friendly diet includes things that are rich in fiber and are easily digestible. So it just kind of all builds on itself there.
Yeah. No, I think you're right on with the GLP-1 trend. It's going to be really interesting to see how this unfolds as time goes by, and that more people are on this medication for longer periods of time.
Sure.
But you definitely see like the brands responding to it because you see the GLP-1 friendly call outs on the packages right now. Such
Super
as like,
interesting.
yeah, right? Like
Yeah.
gut friendly GLP booster, or
Yeah.
whether that's on a probiotic powder or, and then, but basically, I guess with the idea that these products could be designed to help curb cravings and, as you mentioned,
Right.
improve digestion.
Right, right. Well, cool. Well, kind of related to that and digestion is, that same topic. I think I've been on this podcast just a handful of times, and it seems like gut health and functional foods have come up just about every time. So we're still seeing that fermentation is still trending. So things, brands that are featuring fermented yeast protein, pickles, sauerkraut. I know we've talked about kimchi in the past, all that kind of stuff. We just continue to see that. And I think, again, as more science backs up how important probiotics are to the diet, not just for digestion, but for your overall, that connection to your brain and how you feel when you're eating, and some of the links to depression, and how the foods you eat can help with that. The functional snack and meal replacements will continue to be on the rise. One of the things that I actually tried while I was at the show, I actually didn't get consume too many samples. Surprisingly, it's like usually my go-to is figure out where all the good samples were. Not this year. I was busy actually. I don't know what the difference was, but but I
Maybe you
did
were.
try one of these drinkable multivitamins, and so I thought that was
Ah.
really interesting. I mean, I think maybe they're not new, or they might have been around a while, but out here in Fort Morgan, we don't get a lot of the new and innovative things right away, and so usually I rely on Expo to, like, okay, what's going to be in my grocery store in a few months, and that was one that I was kind of counting on to see down the road. And then we also had the collagen products, so just things with collagen. And I mean, I'm probably going to butcher this, but I'm guessing chaga is the name of an antioxidant that we've seen, and L-theanine added to coffee. And so those are all things that, again, play into that nutrient density, where if you're drinking a cup of coffee and it has all of these extra, things added in, then that makes you feel just that much better about the consumption of your daily cup of joe. So
Yeah, I mean, we certainly don't have to try very hard to find snacks and products with
yeah,
functionality. So, whether it's giving you that protein hit, the gut boost, or whatever it is. But how about all the functional beverages? I mean, of all the categories, right? I mean,
yep,
functional waters. We talked about them last year, but I mean, it's like, this year.
yes, yeah. Well, and I
Wow.
think just in general, the different variations of water period that you can see every year in and year out. And sometimes it's, your tried and true brands, and other times it's new and innovative brands. But the amount of innovation that still exists around water is mind blowing to me. But definitely this year we saw like the botanical functional waters. So things with chamomile and rosemary, and adaptogens being added to water. So again, those mental health boosters, memory boosters, prebiotics, probiotics, maca, all those types of things being added into the water. And I think you were telling me about a crystal infused water, and their big claim to fame is that it balances your chakra. So again, another just kind of mind blowing innovation in the space of water. So,
Who knew? Yeah.
and then outside of water, in the beverage category that we continue to see trend is that non alcoholic cocktail inspired drinks, natural sodas, non alcoholic, sparkling champagne, all of those types of products. What's also really interesting is, again, I don't get out too often, but when I go to the old, the big city there in Denver, and we take in a really nice meal, I'm starting to see so many different variations of cocktails and mocktail both as part of just like menu mainstays. So I think it just kind of speaks to the fact that, that trend is not a trend. It's probably not going anywhere. It's going to keep hanging around. So
Yeah, and now you don't have to just go to your restaurant to get a really nice
yes.
mocktail,
Yeah.
or non-alcoholic
Yeah.
beverage. I mean, you can buy it in the grocery store and consume it at home.
Yeah. It's
So
like you got a mixologist right in your back pocket there.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about all the electrolytes this year? I mean, again, like my mind was blown. It just exploded this year. And as you know, my daughter competes in cross country and track in
Yep.
high school and is headed to compete in the fall in college. So here in my household, we're like taking and trying all these different
Right.
electrolytes, including all these samples that I picked up, honestly, at Expo, to see which ones really do the job, so that she's got something that can kind of sustain her when she heads off to college, and it's lightweight. It can be
Right.
shipped to her super
Right.
easy. I
Yeah.
was just truly astounded by all of the options,
Yes.
in a powder format, in little
Yeah, I
pouch.
agree. And I have kiddos that are just active all the time, and a lot of them are outside activities. So we're just constantly trying to find the best ways to, replenish in between, 3 games of whatever each day. And so I've, as a consumer, been really jazzed about the kind of continued growth in this space. I'm not positive if it was at Expo per se, but there's an electrolyte, almost like an applesauce pouch, that it's an electrolyte replacement, and I know that's a fan favorite at our house. So I think you'll have to let me know which ones you guys land on as your favorite beverage electrolyte replacements, and we'll have to compare notes and try what you're finding out there. So
Yeah, absolutely. So far the ones that are like uh, leading the pack, so to speak, are the ones that are infused with the coconut water powder. They
right,
just seem the most refreshing
yeah,
to
yeah,
us. And how they're sweetened is really, I mean, these ingredient decks are very diverse. But you see some combination of a little bit of cane sugar and or stevia, or some that just have fruit juice powders to add a little
right,
sweetness. But really different combinations. And then this year they're changing it up. I mean, some of them are including yerba mate, that tea to give you
yeah,
a boost of energy.
yeah,
You're also seeing ones that have additions to boost your immune system too.
right,
It's really interesting.
yeah,
So um, I just see this category continue to expand, and as I shop different grocery stores, I'm noticing now a section in the store that's really carved out for
right,
electrolytes, both in the powder format, and then you go over
and in
to
the
the
liquid
ready
format.
to drink side, and you get a lot of options there. And again, what I saw at Expo was a lot of coconut water driven ready to drink electrolytes, and then some with lemon as well.
Wow, yeah, exactly.
So,
Well, and
yeah,
anytime we hear anything about coconut, our ears at Smirks perk up because that's one of our favorite categories to work in. So it's definitely something that we can help with, and we can do both the powders, and so we're excited. Anytime we see all of the growth in that space, it's a good fit for us as a sourcing partner. So
absolutely. And the fact that we can do the coconut water concentrates as well, which
yeah,
we can bring those in, and they're more economical than bringing in just your regular coconut water.
right,
So
right,
it's another great option in this space.
yeah, for sure. Well, shifting gears away from beverage, let's talk about the gluten-free innovations that we saw there at Expo West. By the way, a little fun fact for you: in the U.S., about 6 to 8% of people have celiac disease or some kind of gluten sensitivity, but around 25 to 30% of people make the choice to eat gluten free or cut their gluten intake. So that's pretty cool. And I guess that would explain why we see so many brands delivering some very interesting gluten free options. So some of the ones that we noted were, Bedrock Baker's English muffins, which is cassava flour based. And then cinnamon raisins, sourdough and toast, and Texas toast sourdough, which actually is sweetened with date syrup. So that one's kind of a nice combination of an alternative natural sweetener and a gluten-free option. So kind of packing the punch there.
Sure.
Other ones that we've started to see grow in popularity are things with buckwheat and sorghum flour bases. So pasta options there. And then a remake of our favorite childhood snack, the Rice Krispie treats. And I have to say they're my favorite because I really love the combination of marshmallows and butter. So I don't know if this nostalgic treat, maybe does that for me. But if I ever grow up and I want to, have a snack that's better for me, this one has organic ingredients. It's brown rice and quinoa, which I'm sure has some probably interesting textures. And then the other things that were included in that ingredient deck were the ube and churro and honey matcha. So it actually sounds quite delightful. I'm just still a kid at heart. Give me all the marshmallow and butter that I could ever consume.
Yeah, they're certainly changing it up with those different flavor options in a Rice Krispie. I'm super curious about this one too. But yeah, of course, It's definitely throwback to childhood, right?
Yes, exactly. And then some of the other things that we saw were, gluten-free puff pastries, pancakes and waffles made from einkorn flour, which is a flour just inherently with a lower level of gluten. So yeah, a lot of really cool things happened in that space. Again, I think we'll continue to echo that year after year, but it's always fun to see what's new and innovative each year.
Absolutely. And our household has already picked up some of the products to check them out because we have gluten-free folks, and my husband is gluten-free, so the
Sure.
Texas toast has already been included
Oh,
in our
nice. Nice.
our grocery basket. Pretty good.
That's
So yeah.
awesome.
Did you see that definitely nut butters and seed butters, well, not going away, but definitely all over the place at the show?
Yeah, yeah, I
Uh,
definitely have noticed that. It seems like just more brands are developing, whereas like before it was like a couple niche brands, for years and years, and now it just seems like every year we go and there's more brands that are offering various, their various take on these types of offerings.
right. And I mean, from almond to hazelnut, of course, and nut butter combinations
Yep,
mixed together, in other words.
yep,
They're just all kinds. And it's not just standalone products, but they're incorporated into bars and chocolate and baked goods,
right.
just all over the place. And, it just strikes a chord again as we talk about protein, right? Because
Yes,
these are
exactly.
definitely high protein options to add to your snack.
Yeah, for sure. And they also seem to just kind of inherent just less fillers than maybe our traditional nut butters that we grew up with. And so that's also kind of nice to be able to just have something that has a slightly cleaner ingredient deck readily available.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I get pretty excited now in the nut butter space in the grocery store, just looking at all the possibilities and things to
Right.
try. And I've been kind of making my
Yeah.
way through trying different ones, and now I'm getting into the seed butters, and those were really pretty big at the show. I mean,
Yeah.
sunflower, pumpkin, and then I saw black sesame butter with chocolate. I
That
had to
sounds
take a
good.
sample of that. That's it's pretty interesting stuff.
I think we might have been chatting about this, and I mentioned to you how one time I visited a Shake Shack, and it was a seasonal shake, but they used black sesame butter in the shake, and so something that has chocolate in it. I'm very intrigued by that. I've been trying to kind of figure out how to recreate that particular shake at home, and so maybe with a product like this, we'd be able to get that done at our with some vanilla ice cream and some black sesame butter with chocolate.
Ooh,
Mmm,
boy, that sounds good,
very
Jessica.
earthy and delicious is what that sounds
Yes, bring it on.
like.
For
Oh,
sure.
well, cool. Yeah. So there was definitely, a combination and continuation of seed butters. But, kind of right there with some of the flavors that we're seeing with sesame, there was an explosion of just global flavors this year. So a lot of the flavor trends that we are seeing are tied to miso, mushrooms, and so just stuff with global influence. I actually got kind of intrigued by, we were chatting about some of the global flavor, trends, and so I was trying to figure out like what is, driving some of this. And of course all things point back to social media and TikTok and influencers and things like that, but I actually stumbled across the name of this, new cooking craze called chaos cooking. But essentially it's this idea of, less, traditional culinary processes and procedures and recipe following and all of that. And so, if you're not familiar with it, I recommend digging into it a little bit. It seems pretty interesting. But one of the things that I think comes out of that and just overall has been reinforced by restaurants and then now brands is this idea of, fusion of flavors, where you'd see, things that have maybe more Asian elements being fused with things with Latin American elements, and so we're starting to see that at play with brands and the snacks that are available. So there were a lot of international brands at the show. We saw all over from Japan, Taiwan, Korea, India, all making a strong showing. Some of the highlights were the Korean kimchi salsa. Um, and just some freeze dried options and Indian-inspired lemonades, which had, cardamom and turmeric and cumin and some of the packaged roti Mexican chili spiced dried fruits, which are a favorite at my household. Any spiced dried fruit, my kids chowed down. And then West African fonia rice and fonia rice pilaf. So just a lot of different flavors. And then like we said, we're starting to see where maybe things that traditionally wouldn't be paired together are starting to be paired together, and they're in a snack bar or in a mix or off the shelf product that make it a lot more fun at home to experiment.
I love this trend. Yeah, I think this is great. And, you know, kudos to those folks that are coming up with these new chaotic
Right, right. Just like the
recipes.
creativity that goes into it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's fantastic.
Yep, exactly.
Some of the stuff, that stood out for me was like there's so many more matcha-based items
Sure.
this year, and that of course being a flavor of Japan, and then ube flavored products, and that's a Philippine product.
Right.
They were abundant, and you've got that beautiful purple color, and
Mm-hmm.
so I even saw like Starbucks has a new
Yes.
drink now,
Yep.
but the like ube matcha tea or anyway, these are super interesting and beautiful. So that's been something to see, and miso having a moment,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Exactly.
We saw veggie puff chips, eggplant pizza, and salad dressings, all from miso. I mean, I
Wow.
I can think back to too many years ago to say on camera of when I studied abroad in Japan back in the day in college, and I just could never fathom seeing miso as on a veggie puffed chip or on a pizza here in the
Oh
U.S.
yeah.
That's just kind of mind blowing to think about now.
Oh, that's
So,
cool. Yeah, for sure.
um, yeah, but and then I noticed, the whole boba trend
Yep.
is just it's prevalent, right? I mean,
Yep. Guilty as
I won't,
charged. I'm one of the
yeah, yeah,
consumers driving that trend. And I don't even really like the tapioca
household,
pearls that much. I like the ones that pop and like are full of sugar. That's me right there, and my kids too. So maybe they'll start putting
yeah.
some date syrup in that bad boy, and I'll feel better about it. So
There you go, there you go. Yeah, no, I mean there is like no short, and it's kind of like you don't have to go out and
right.
go to the restaurant to consume your drink, your boba. Now you can get it at home with a ready to drink boba.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, that's a bonus for the folks that just are craving it and have to have it right now.
Yes,
So,
exactly. Or if you're, like I said, we live out kind of in a remote place, so boba's not super readily available for us, and so it's just kind of one of those things that now that we have these brands that are developing these in home use brands or options, excuse me, products, it's been wonderful because we don't have to go out of our way to have something that we enjoy as a family. So. But yeah,
absolutely.
outside of boba drinks, that plant-based milk department, seems to keep growing. Items keep getting added to the shelves there. Oat milk and coconut milk are still very popular. But in addition to those, what stood out was how much or prevalent pistachio milk was. So, and I think what's interesting about that one is certainly we know in the food space timing is everything, and so I'm sure there were a lot of projects in the R&D pipeline when pistachios were running at some lower cost basis, and then now right now we're seeing we're in an off year for pistachio crop, which has resulted in an uptick in prices, and not just an uptick in prices, but availability has been truly hard to come by, especially in the organic space. So it's kind of interesting to see, such a big push at Expo, because I'm sure, like I said, a lot of these projects were probably in the works, and then now they're in the commercialization phase. So it'll be interesting to see, if demand remains high, or if it'll be curbed by some of these pricing, or if consumers are just loving pistachios enough to pay the prices. So
It definitely will be interesting to see. In my local store, I saw the pistachio milk for $8, and I was like, "Wow,
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, but I
Yeah.
mean, I am a bit of a sucker for pistachios, and I'm probably one of those people that might, spend it because, or go for it because I
Right.
crave it now and then, in
Right.
whatever form. Speaking of butters too, I mean, the pistachio butter is also a really tasty thing.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And I remember very distinctly last year, I'm sure the brand's probably still around, but that was like one of the hot products as far as taste and mouthfeel and just overall innovation was a pistachio butter product.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
I'm
That
sure
was really
we'll
tasty.
continue to see it.
Absolutely. And just when you thought that oat milk might be on the downward slope, no
You
way.
thought oat milk was on a downward slope, Elisa? I
I
don't know if
know,
that's
not even
going
close.
anywhere.
I thought we had already peaked,
Yeah, I
but
mean that's
we
true.
have
It's hard to gauge. Yeah, exactly.
we have not peaked with
No.
oat milk, not even close. I mean, the number of oat milk products and creamers, it
Yep.
was just all over the show. Um, and I'm going to be honest with you, like when they started to become popular, I was like, I've got to adjust my palate to this taste. It was just different, right?
Yeah.
But I'm hooked now.
I was
So
when I very first tried it, I was actually surprised at the it's kind of goes back to that nostalgic flavor profile that we have talked about on this podcast and some other trends that we've discussed. I don't know what about it made it taste nostalgic to me. I don't know if it was just, when I'm used to eating oatmeal growing up or what have you, but I enjoy the taste of it, and it's not something I will use, per se as a personal consumer for a one milk substitute, but I definitely really enjoy it as an ingredient in certain things that we're preparing at the house, and my kids love it, and they'll just drink a cup of it, So
mhm,
it's definitely done a great job establishing itself as a big player in the marketplace.
sure has. And definitely on the coconut milk side, we saw a whole lot of products around
Right.
coconut milk.
Hmm.
And I think, as major importers of coconut milk and coconut cream, we don't see this trend going away. And then coconut milk powder as well, just to
Right.
kind of be an extension to that.
Yeah, so as importers of this item, friends, drink up all the coconut milk and let us help you bring it in for some more. We're also seeing it being used quite heavily in like yogurt applications and again, the global flavors. It's a flavor profile that plays well in a lot of different global flavor palettes and cuisines. So certainly around for the long haul. We hope as the importers of this item.
Absolutely.
But yeah, but speaking of oats, outside of our normal traditional oat milk application, did you see that there was oat milk being incorporated more into like vegan chocolate products? There was an oat milk caramelized coconut cup, um, and then other chocolate bars using oat milk. So certainly, kind of an interesting flavor profile. A lot of different flavors in that mix there.
I absolutely saw that. I'm a sucker for all the chocolate products, so I really key in on all that. And it is interesting to see more and more formulation with the chocolate brands utilizing the oat milk. Um, and I even saw a new chocolate brand that utilized rolled oats in their
Oh,
chocolate as well.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, chocolate brands, speaking of chocolate, faced some, challenges this year. We were talking about pistachios. That had nothing on the cacao market, and we saw one chocolate brand at their booth that just had no, nothing really around it, no, high production quality type things, and it just had a handwritten sign that said, "Coco stole the budget, but we're still here." And I think that's hilarious. I mean, it just sums up the coconut market or the cocoa market, excuse me, these days. And um, it is true when you're kind of at the whim of some of these commodity fluctuations. You have to get creative, and that whether that's a creativity in the formulation by adding things like coconut or excuse me oat milk and other items into your mix. But it's really cool to see, you know, how innovative some of the brands were getting, how creative they were getting at the show with their marketing. And then just also the other piece of it is just, you know, how cautious they were being and the samples they were handing out.
Yeah.
It wasn't a, you know, everyone take one, please. It was like, here, have this sliver of chocolate and move along, you know.
You can't blame them,
No.
absolutely. And I mean, it's just a matter of like if you really wanted to try something or have that sample, really engaging with them and asking questions and whatnot, which our our household is quite the consumer of chocolate. So yeah, it wasn't hard to engage, but yeah, it's been a challenge. And on the cocoa front, as I learned when I went to the food sustainability conference back in January in
Oh
San
yeah.
Francisco, here we're really talking about, of course, there's been severe weather patterns in the last few years that have really taken a
Right.
toll on the farmers' production. And while cocoa farming, used to be a profession that kind of was passed on generation to generation,
Okay,
so to
yeah, sure.
speak, the average farmer, cocoa farmer age is like getting in their 50s and 60s. And,
Oh.
the younger generation is just not necessarily seeing a future in it.
Hmm.
So the reality is that even though maybe, just the past, maybe even a couple weeks, we've seen a little softening
Yeah.
in the cocoa market
Yep.
pricing, right?
Definitely.
Which is good to see.
Yes.
But what we kind of have to worry about is like the long term outlook,
Right.
and what that's going to look like. And I mean, the honest truth is that we might just simply be paying higher prices, and but with the hope that more of the the price that we pay is going back to that small farmer, because most of these are small farmers,
Right.
to really make this more of a sustainable industry as a whole.
Right.
That's my hope.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense, and it's oftentimes not a perspective you think about when you're, you know, eating your favorite chocolate bar, and so it's really quite interesting to learn those facts. And you know, overall, we see a lot of those fluctuations, you know, on some of the pricing, but again, at the consumer level, you don't always see that in real time, and so. The cacao market has gone for a wild ride, and like you said, we're hoping that we're gonna kind of see some softening there. But yeah, but besides chocolate, one of our other favorite vices to talk about is coffee. And for those of you who don't know, I was couldn't drink coffee for quite some time because it tasted really awful to me, actually, after I had lost my taste and smell from COVID. And so this 2024 was the year that I could drink coffee again. And so it was like a small victory. And so I was actually paying attention to coffee trends at the show this year. So all good things there. There's a lot of innovation in that space, kind of similar things that we're seeing with the other functional beverages. Protein in coffee, so you know, really a double whammy there. And then you have the mushroom and adaptogen infused coffee that's supposed to help with alertness and memory and you know, stress levels, all of those good things. And canned coffee with a gut friendly A2 milk. So just across the board, a lot of different options there. And then as for tea, yerba mate tea has had a bigger presence, often with, you know, that higher caffeine content without that big caffeine spike is kind of what they make the claims on. So again, it'll be kind of cool to see how all these different brands and products continue to evolve over the next couple years. So
Yeah, I'm super jazzed about this category too, as you know. And I mean, did you see the steepable coffee bags that, I mean, it's kind of like tea,
I did
but
not
it's,
see those. That
yeah,
sounds really cool, actually.
that was
Uh,
super interesting.
yeah.
And speaking of pistachio, we had like a pistachio coffee. It's
Oh,
like a coffee alternative, and it contains pistachios, coconut milk powder, and monk fruit.
but is there
So,
caffeine? That's the real question.
I mean, yeah.
Unlikely is the answer to that. Yeah, exactly. Well, then I don't want it,
Or,
Elisa. I want nothing to do with
yeah.
that. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's for an alternative.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. For all the
Yeah.
non-caffeine fiends, I
Yeah.
understand. I
And
understand you're out there. I just don't know you, and I want
I
nothing to do
know.
with you.
And speaking of
Yeah,
alternatives, they had a decaf ready to drink cold brew, which
yeah.
I
Again,
mean,
anybody that's drinking
that's
that is not my friend, is what I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say.
but it's a first. I've not
Yes.
seen that before.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, there's been definitely some interesting things in the coffee front for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, that's awesome. Also, I think tied with coffee is the natural sweeteners that we've alluded to and have chatted about in the past. But we like to see the sugar-free or sweetened naturally things, or like the cleaner ingredient decks when we go to the show. And um, it seemed like there were some booths that were doing a lot of the made with real sugar, which kind of goes to some of the backlash boom of some of the artificial sweeteners we've seen in the past. But I think that's also part of why we're seeing dates have a special moment, because there's a lot of date-based sweets and butter stuffed dates and date sugar and date syrup, and then of course tried and true maple syrup, all these fun sweeteners and honey. So just all the things we chatted about before continue to be there. And I think that's also where we start to see some of the fun plays on sweet and savory, and some of those things being mixed, swapped out for one another, or like you would see a honey where you would normally, because it's just there's some of the savory elements being implemented with some of those things. So it'll be cool to see how natural sweeteners continue to take up space on the shelves.
Yeah, super interesting to see how this ebbs and flows, this whole category. And what I did find that was different, I talked to one chocolate company that explained to me that instead of using other types of sweeteners, they were literally taking fresh fruit, drying it themselves, and adding it to flavor their chocolate bar as an alternative to cane sugar or another
Wow,
sweetener. And
that's
they were truly
amazing.
delicious. Yeah, and I
It
thought,
sounds
wow, okay,
expensive, but it sounds amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the cost and then the labor involved with that is a lot,
Yeah,
but the concept
sure.
and the execution was quite lovely, I
Right.
gotta say.
Well, and then you imagine if that, is something that catches on, then you start to get more mainstream processing, methodologies, and potentially can bring down some costs and those kinds of things. But even if it remains a niche item, it's still fun to kind of get to have those and have those as alternatives to everyday sweeteners. So
Absolutely.
um, I know we've already chatted about nostalgic flavors, or at least hinted at it, here and there. But I don't know if we would be able to get away with not talking about nostalgic flavors when talking about expo trends. Did you notice how they're still all over the place, still on the rise? Um, we're definitely seeing that comfort food flavors making a comeback. PB and J profiles are still around. Shirley Temples, I think we talked about that last year too, so they're still there and prevalent. And then the pretzel's making, it's having its moment. And it's kind of fun because there's the gluten-free and protein pack options that we've already talked about. But then just in general, kind of your average pretzel snack with just seasonings and nice solid flavors. They're everywhere as well. And I know pretzels are a favorite snack around our house, and in all variations. And so it'll be kind of fun to continue to see that one grow as well.
Absolutely. Lots of fun stuff in terms of nostalgia at the show. And it was not only in the snacks, but I saw it everywhere in the marketing approach
Mm-hmm.
that the brands were
Yep.
taking. Did you? But before I move on with the marketing, I just have to see if you saw this. Did you see a root beer float flavored popcorn?
No, I did not see that. That sounds delicious and gross all at the same time.
It's been a minute since I've had even just a root beer float, but
Oh
let
my
alone even
gosh.
thinking about a classic snack like popcorn being flavored with root beer
Yeah.
float. But, so like fun. I mean, just
Yeah.
genuinely fun.
That is awesome. And I think it's kind of it's really interesting because we do run into so many of the flavor companies, and you just always see all the different innovations at just like the very base ingredient level. And so then to see it on the actual finished product and having that root beer float flavor applied to popcorn and getting to kind of taste that, that sounds really awesome. I missed
Yeah,
that one, so now I'm gonna see if I can make up for it and find it after the show here. I've got to
yeah,
try that.
gotta find it. Yeah, but as I said on the branding side, there's just so much going on, and the companies are incorporating those throwback colors and designs and fonts in their packaging,
Sure. Yep.
and it just really evokes that sense of playfulness. And I just love it. The booth designs, the clothing that the people are wearing that are in the booths, it just all just was playful and fun, and just took me back a decade or two or three.
Right. Right.
I don't want to date myself, but it did. It just it's kind of fun to see that. But in total contrast to that, what about all the really edgy marketing
Oh
that,
yeah.
that we saw? I
Yeah.
mean, you
You
know
got to
what I'm
have
talking
something for
about,
every
right?
consumer, right? Yeah. There's the, attention grabbing brand names and graphics. We're all familiar with Liquid Death at this point, and our booth was luckily positioned right next to Death Wish Coffee. So Jason befriended them day one. Somehow finagled his own very big coffee, not a sample size coffee cup, and it seemed like he got free refills pretty much whenever he wanted. So that booth is there, and all the marketing that goes with that, and Punk Bunny Coffee, and just so many more different branding things. And kind of in preparation for this podcast, I was just researching, and I actually had a note specifically about marketing. About again, it just kind of goes back to some of the influencers, and just in general. The younger generations respond very well to some of these, and they're not really innovations in marketing, but it's just like that recycling, but still coming out with that creative content. And so it seems like all of those things will be here to stay, because the consumer appeal is really what's driving a lot of that stuff. So pretty cool. It's always fun. I love the production quality of all these different things and the marketing messages. And but at the end of the day, I think my favorite is still going to be the one that was a handwritten sign with nothing else that said the Coco stole our budget. Like, that's classic. So
Yes.
yes. But yeah, I mean, outside of branding, we can kind of translate or transition from our branding notes into just one other trend we wanted to chat about was the upcycled and sustainable ingredients trend. Again, I think this has just been every time I chat with you on these podcasts, or my colleagues on these podcasts, Elisa, we're always talking about this. So it's pretty cool. So what is your take on some of these things, especially being fresh off the sustainability summit and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I really took a notice to it for sure, and definitely what stuck out for me was there's upcycled rice. I mean, that was a new
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
where
Okay.
they're utilizing whole and kind of barely broken rice,
Yeah.
and popping that into a bag. I mean, for a lot of people, I don't think it matters so much how big that kernel of rice is. So
Right.
that was cool. That's definitely taking a product that that might end up going to waste, and putting it on the market. So I thought that
Well,
was
and
neat.
I think what's interesting about that in general is that, there's so many practices that were adopted for so long because, brands maybe had the consumer research or maybe whatever that drove them to think, hey, we have to be at this caliber of whatever product. And just as you shift from one generation of consumer to the next, some of the level of care at the consumer level, like you just mentioned, is probably diminished. Maybe not where the brands didn't know it at first. And so there's just been this, really fun revelation in the last, few years of people kind of digging in and understanding that some of the sensitivities that consumers had, 10, 20, 30 years ago don't exist anymore. And so then now that opens the door to all these upcycled options, where if the dried fruit isn't quite as pretty, or the rice isn't quite the perfect size, or whatever, you're not going to get those same maybe consumer complaints that once upon a time existed. So that's kind of neat.
No, and in contrast, because usually those products are not necessarily the cheapest.
Right.
but people are willing to pay a little bit of a premium for something that they know is
Yeah. Yeah.
not going into the landfill,
Right.
and maybe has, in some cases, more nutrients. In
Hmm.
certain products, that would be the case. So,
Yep.
yeah, it's a super interesting trend. And um, regenerative organic was a big topic at the
Yep.
sustainability conference that I was at, and I saw so many regenerative organic certified, and there's other certifications as well for
Right.
this same regenerative topic, but in terms of farming practices, whatever certifier they use, it proliferated the
Right.
show. I mean, we
Right.
just saw more and more, and we talked about it last year, but dried fruits, coconut products, rice, olives, pasta, coffee, tea, chocolate, oats, and more. It was
Right.
there.
Right. Well, and I mean, if you think about it, at one point we were doing, more of an educational bit on one of our podcasts about just even what is regenerative organic, and I think we're getting to the point more and more now where it's not even an educational piece anymore. It's just, hey, do you have that item in this option? And so it's really cool how it's just continued to, like you said, proliferate is the best word to describe it. So
Absolutely. And it's one of the things that I learned at the conference that is growing at a rapid pace in
right,
terms of consumer understanding.
adoption, yeah,
So,
yeah,
and once people are aware of it, it just is kind of exploding.
yeah,
The challenge now is to keep up with the growth, because it's not an easy process to
right.
get certified. Whichever certifier you use, it's a challenge. So that when I see a brand coming online, like I just saw in the news a meat company coming online with it just recently, it's impressive, because I
Right.
know there's a lot of work put into that. It's a lot of effort, but um, you can respect the work they've done within their supply chain to make that happen.
Yeah. And I mean, one thing that's, to that exact point is interesting is that some of the practices that are required to become certified in regenerative agriculture are not new. It's just the documentation and the process around it. So it's kind of fun in that some of these practices that, are very inherent into this certification have been around and they've been utilized and they're not new to these farmers. And so now it's just kind of, it's basically saying, oh, well, we've been doing that all along. Now let's let the world know that we've been doing it. And so
Yeah,
that's what's really neat about this particular certification.
it is remarkable too what simple things like cover cropping can do
Yeah,
to
exactly.
benefit the soil.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, super interesting.
Well, thanks for the insight there. And kind of not really in the same vein here, but just, again, more trends and more, kind of in the same vein from the eco-friendly standpoint is on the household product side. I mean, that's one of the cool parts about Expo is it's not just food. It's, that we've got personal care items and we have household products and just a whole bevy of, things to look at. And so same thing there. We continue to see growth and innovation in the space around the eco-friendly cleaning products and soaps, and not just in the ingredients that are being used, but in the actual mechanism that they're being commercialized. Like with soap, we're seeing the bars, and with laundry detergent and things like that, we're seeing sheets. So in addition to becoming more eco-friendly with less plastics involved and less waste overall, or less even resources that go into the manufacturing of some of these things, we're actually seeing from a consumer side how easy it is to use some of these new formats. Like if you're traveling, a washing machine sheet in your suitcase is a lot easier to travel with, or in some cases saves you from stopping at Target once you get where you're going. You don't have to run out to the store to get any additional toiletries and household products. So it's really fun to kind of see the popularity that's coming online. And speaking of traveling with the bar soaps and things, there's all these options where now you don't have to worry about liquids and the, getting through security and or, packing them without them getting all over your clothing by the time that you land. So I think
Yeah.
it's a really cool product that checks a lot of boxes. And so it'll be exciting to see how that category just continues to take off. And we're just seeing a lot more offerings than we ever did before. So some of the eco-friendly packaging that we're seeing is tied to, reusable plant-based water bottles, which are being used as an alternative to even some of the aluminum and things like that. And then we did see some aluminum packaged olive oil to refill with your glass bottle. So like some of these packaging options are being utilized in conjunction with each other to reduce waste overall, and kind of make it easier for the consumer to not have to continue to buy the same, product over and over again. You can just do the refills. So that'll be interesting to see how that continues to develop. So what do you think about
Yeah,
that, Elisa?
I loved seeing some of these things that you talked about, Jessica, because we had talked about some of these eco-friendly packaging ideas at the Food Sustainability Summit that I went to, and I was heartened to see that some of the speakers there and brands, they were talking about how they were utilizing recycled plastic for their containers. There are also much more corrugated paper being used instead of plastic. And when you think about those, whether it's the bar of soap or the shampoo bar or the conditioner bar, you don't have to wrap that in plastic necessarily. That can just be a simple corrugated paper wrap.
Yeah, yeah,
It definitely gives you a lot more options where we can kind of pivot away from plastic a little bit,
sure.
and even some of the packaging that's compostable. There's a chocolate brand that uses a compostable paper to wrap their chocolate in, which is really cool.
Right.
So yeah, I felt like Expo West did not disappoint.
No,
You
no.
know,
It
we can
rarely
all
does. It's a great show.
yeah.
And it's honestly one of those things, just like in every corner that you look, there's something interesting. I mean, even if you don't make it through all of the halls and all of the places, you're still going to find something that's cool and either looks cool because of the marketing, or tastes good, or is innovative, or is just truly interesting. And then you also get your mix of finding out things that you won't buy when you get home because you just didn't quite sit well with you. So it's good from that standpoint as well.
Yeah, there's all things for all people, really.
Yes, exactly.
Who knew that I'd find a tasty vegan hard-boiled egg made from nuts?
I would never have, if like we were putting bets down before the show and Elisa said, "Hey, I need to find a tasty vegan hard-boiled egg. How many options do you think we'd find?" I would say zero. So
Yeah. So
yeah,
that was, super interesting. And there's always also like this level of excitement, right?
yes, yeah,
And wonder about what you're going to see. And it's really like the excitement is contagious. I mean, it's so fun to kind of discover these different things and talk to these entrepreneurs that are
right,
behind these young emerging brands. And, there's just that element of surprise when we walk down the rows about what we're going to see.
right, right,
And, I hope that we summed up some of that here today, like for folks that couldn't make it to the show.
right.
But yeah, and then of course there's those element of surprises that happen at every trade show because I've been to trade shows for so many years. I didn't expect us to get locked out of our rental house on the first day, so that
That
was
was
a
totally your fault, Elisa. You should really, you know, figure that out. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's just it. It's always an adventure. It's so fun to get, go to the show, see our colleagues, see our customers, see the folks that we, source things from all over the world. They come, they, chat with our team. And it's outside of just the entirety of the show. It's always fun at the Smirks booth. It just seems like there's always a buzz there, and so it was a pleasure getting to attend again this year with you, and even more of a pleasure to get to recap it with you. So I don't think that we forgot anything, but if we did, hit us up via email to tell us, if you saw trends that you want us to dig into, or have any ideas on things you want to source. Smirks team's here for you. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jessica. It's been a blast.
yes,
And that kind of wraps up our
wraps her
recap
up.
for ExpoWest 2025. And we thank everybody for listening, but we
Yes,
definitely want you to stay tuned because we are going to give you the latest market report in the next segment of this podcast. So please don't go away.
ooh,
Thanks again
don't
for
miss
your
that.
time as always. And catch us at smirks.com or what's new at smirks.com to reach out. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks, Elisa.
See ya.